are solely those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views of the Nevis Broadcasting Company Limited or its advertisers.
Ladies and gentlemen, good evening and welcome to this week's edition of On The Mark, straight talk across the Narrows. I am Troy Liban and I'm going to be your host for this evening. I think we're going to have a wonderful time this evening. Of course, it's 8 o'clock on the dot and you should be listening to the Eastern Caribbean's only powerhouse, and it's Wednesday night, so that means it's On The Mark, the people's show, the best show, straight talk across the Narrows. Let me apologize for the absence of our regular host, the Honorable Mark Brantley, but he's taking a break tonight. But I'm here. I haven't been here for quite a while, and I love being on radio, and the people have been saying that they miss me on The Mark, and I was so happy to come. But I'm not alone tonight. I have two special guests in the studio with me, and I will introduce them to you in a bit. But I think we're gonna have something good for the general public. I've come with an agenda tonight. Normally when I come, it's the people's agenda. I come to listen to you, to talk to you. It's a bit of that tonight, but it's more along a set path tonight. Of course, at the top of the show, we always like to welcome in all of our listeners, and in recent times, it's not just listeners, it's viewers. So you guys can see me tonight. I'm in a black shirt. It says 869 in the colors of our national flag in St. Kitts and Nevis. I'm trying to be patriotic. In a time like these, when the world is going through so many different things, it's good that we can show our national colors. It's good that we can be patriotic. It's good that we can live as brothers and sisters and friends. You start to focus on the things that's most important, the basic things, things like love and family and so on. And these are the things that we want to stay focused on. So in this time when we are under the scourge of COVID, we want to think about these basic things, and we want to come together as a community. We have been going through a lot here in St. Kitts and Nevis. I think we've been blessed though, because I think at this point we're COVID free, but so many places around the world, people going through a lot. I have friends and family who I talk to all the time, friends in the United States, all over the United States, and some people are telling me, my neighbor down the road, he was suffering from coronavirus, or somebody on the job suffering from coronavirus. So everybody on the job had to be had to self-quarantine at home. These are the type of stories that I'm getting when I talk on the phone to people overseas. So here in the Federation, we've managed to stay clear of it. Our borders at the moment, for the most part, have been closed, but we can't stay closed because we're an island, and a lot of the things that we consume, a lot of the things that we eat, drink, wear, they're all coming from overseas, and so we can't shut ourselves off from the world. Also, we are a nation that's dependent on tourism, and at some point, we're gonna have to open up and allow that to happen. I know that the government has been working day in, day out to put various protocols in place so that when we do reopen, we'll be doing it in the safest possible way. So I want to welcome in all of our listeners, all of you who are viewing us on Facebook, those of you who are viewing us on YouTube, and if you're listening on the radio and you want to see what I look like, you can go on YouTube and type in Von Radio, and you'll get to see. If you have Facebook, you can go on Facebook and just type in Von Radio on Facebook, like the Von Radio page, and you can definitely watch us, stay connected with us. We are hoping to bring quite a good amount of information tonight, and I'm hopeful that the general public, if you have any questions, that you would call in. I know you're gonna like my guests tonight, and I know you're gonna like what we're gonna be talking about tonight. So I'm prepared for a lot of questions, not too tough, but questions nonetheless. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, let me continue with my welcome, because some good folks in Puerto Rico who said that, we're still listening to On The Mark every Wednesday, and we're hearing Mark every week, and we don't hear you at all. You need to come along with Mark. So my good friends in Puerto Rico, good night. I'm here tonight. I want to say special good night to our good listeners up there in Toronto. We have some really, really good listeners in Toronto. Every Wednesday night they're up and they're waiting, to hear a little bit about what's going on the home front. So special good night to all of you folks in the New York area, New Jersey, Connecticut. Good night to all of you. Florida, if you're in Texas, California, Georgia, all over the United States, good night. U.S. Virgin Islands, British Virgin Islands, all of the islands, Jamaica. If you're down in the Windwards, good night to you. If you're in St. Martin, I think St. Martin has just started a series of lockdowns. So I want to encourage all of you, adhere to what the rules are, and because none of us made this COVID, but it is there and it has been wreaking some havoc. So we want to adhere to the rules and ensure that as soon as possible we can get past this scourge. Folks in Trinidad and Guyana and Grenada and wherever you are. And I'm not going to forget our good folks in Taiwan. I'm not sure what time it is over there. Must be the wee hours of the morning. It's what time? 8 p.m. So I think it's 8 a.m. over there, and it's already tomorrow. So good morning to all of you over there in the Far East, Taiwan and China and those places who are listening. And if you're in Europe, places like England and so on, and it's the middle of the night there, I want to thank you for staying up with us. I know that you normally do, because I get the text messages and the WhatsApp and the calls, and folks tell me, we really, really appreciate what you guys do on the radio. And I want to say to all of you, our listeners and viewers, you make the show, and we certainly do appreciate you. I want to send out condolences to anybody who has suffered loss during this time, and at the same time, where there are lows, you have to have highs. So I want to send out greetings to anybody who's celebrating, whether it's a birthday, whether it's an anniversary, whatever the occasion is that you're celebrating, that we celebrate with you also. It's a wonderful night. At the top of the show, I want to announce that the concern, it's not going to be too much politics tonight, just so you all understand, but I need to make the announcement that the Concerned Citizens Movement, the CCM party, we will be having our convention this coming weekend. It's going to be at the NEPAC. We have a closed session on Saturday evening, and then on Sunday afternoon at 4 p.m. we have the big convention. And as we like to say, the Concerned Citizens Movement, the CCM, is a big blue tent. We can fit everybody under the tent. The NEPAC is a big area. We want to be socially distanced because of COVID, but we want to certainly invite the general public out to celebrate with us, and to I don't even want to use the word congregate, but to be in socially distanced close proximity with the Concerned Citizens Movement. We have to be careful nowadays when we promote any type of social event, because we don't want to get too close. We want to keep everything socially distanced. But we are having our convention, and we want to invite folks who are interested in coming to come. It's certainly an open event. Here, some of the vision that we have for the island of Nevis going forward. You'll have an opportunity to hear from the leadership of the party, our party leader, our party chairperson. You'll have an opportunity to hear from our newly elected members of our newly formed youth arm. We have formalized our youth arm in the CCM. We have also formalized a women's arm. Come out and hear from the folks in our women's arm, and certainly come and have a good time at the Concerned Citizens Movement. That's this coming Sunday at 4 p.m. and it's going to be at the NEPAC. Now that we got that little bit of politics out of the way, I want to introduce my two guests this evening, because with this COVID going on, and the fact that we had schools going out in late March, I think it was last week of March, a few weeks before schools were scheduled to be closed. We had schools go out, and then we had a series of things that happened. We tried to bring classes back online, and we lost, for the most part, at least for in-person teaching, we lost the third term of this school year. So it's been a real trying year. Our preschoolers had to stay home, which means that some of the parents who could not find somebody to babysit, single parents and so on, they've had to be home for the most part with the younger ones for some time. And there is generally a lot of concern, and certainly we have been putting the information out there from the Ministry of Education and from the Department of Education, but sometimes the information does not reach everybody. So tonight we know that On The Mark is a big platform, and we get a lot of listeners, and then it's replayed, and so I thought it would be a really, really good thing to bring some folks from the department and from the Ministry of Education to come and speak with you, the general public, so that that information could be put out there, and not just the information going out, but you, the members of the general public, you, the listeners to On The Mark, could call in if you have any questions. And if you know anybody who has been talking to you about school, or when is school opening, or have any questions about school, and you're not sure if they're listening to On The Mark, now is a good time for you to call them up and tell them, hey, come on, listen to On The Mark. We have folks from education and On The Mark that can answer your questions. So when we decide to open the lines, the numbers that you will call are 869-469-1616, 869-469-1700. Keep that in mind. Call your friends, call people who you know. If you know that they have questions, if they've been bugging you and asking you questions about education, tonight is a good time for them to call in on the radio, and they can get the answers that they need to their questions. So we don't want people calling next week or the week after next to say, hey, I don't understand this, or I don't know about this. Call in tonight. So without any further ado, I want to welcome in my two guests for this evening, and my two guests are the two top persons in education here on the island of Nevis. Permanent Secretary, Mr. Kevin Barrett. Good night, Mr. Barrett.
Good night, Mr. Minister. I remember the last time I was here.
I'm going to get back to that.
You tell me, don't call him Mr. Minister, but good night.
Coming back to that. And also with him, we have the Principal Education Officer, Ms. Zanella Claxton.
Good night, Mr. Minister. Good night to all of the persons tuned in via radio, Facebook, and YouTube.
And both of you are no strangers to Von Radio, and certainly no strangers to this show. And this show is a sort of a informal show. on this show, when everybody call in, they call me Troy. So you can choose to whatever you're comfortable with. Whatever everybody is comfortable with. We want to be comfortable on the show. And I noticed when we came into the studio tonight, both of you are wearing your education polo.
Yep.
And I didn't even think about it, or I would have come in my education polo also, because these are the two persons who I work most closely with, and I couldn't get anything done at all if not for them. So, and these are the persons, ladies and gentlemen, who can answer your questions. I am very, very sure, I am very confident that they're going to have all of the answers, or most of the answers, to the questions that you could possibly have surrounding where we are with education and what we're trying to do in terms of the new school year going forward and so on. So good night. I'm going to probably start with Pierce. And I think what's important, I think both of you can chime in, when you feel comfortable doing it, and probably give the general public as an opening statement, some idea of the scope of what you do in terms of education, or what we do in terms of education here on Nevis, and then perhaps we'll get into a little bit more detail after that opening salvo.
Thank you very much, Mr. Minister, and it's a pleasure for me to be back here. As you said, I'm no stranger to Von Radio, but it's always a good platform for me to get information out, and I'm hoping that tonight the information that we give to the general public would be useful, and it would also add a little bit of comfort to those persons who are still very much concerned about going back to school, sending their children back to school. Students are still, not sure how they are going to navigate in these COVID-19 restrictions and regulations and all of that. So I'm hoping that by the end of the night, persons would be comfortable that we are indeed, from the Ministry and the Department of Education, we are doing our best to make things as healthy and as safe as possible for all involved, our teachers, our students, all the staff at the schools, and all of that. You asked me to do a little bit of an overview, Mr. Minister, of the Ministry of Education. And I know a lot of people hear about the Ministry of Education, but the Ministry of Education also includes the library services. It also includes information and technology department. And so while I know tonight we are going to be focusing a lot on education, I would just like to say that the library services that we provide, it is very, very, very important. It's still very relevant. And very shortly, Mr. Minister, we are going to be moving into a new location. I mean, everybody in Nevis knows where the library is at this point, above the courthouse. And we are going to be moving into a new location. And I am putting a plug here now, Mr. Minister, that maybe when that time comes up, now we could come back and do a whole show on library services, because the library does so much, and I think it is not known by a lot of the general public, except for those persons who frequent the library. And so I believe that we could get a whole show just highlighting the services that the library does. And I could tell you, I know a lot of parents would have missed that summer program that the library puts on every year. And that program, focuses on different aspects of our environment and history and culture, and it teaches our children a lot about our environment and history and culture. And parents look forward to that program every year. And this year, because of COVID-19, it had to be cancelled. But we are hoping that next year, everything, coming back to normal. We are hoping, and that it would again be on the calendar. But that is not all that the library does. The library, they have programs for preschoolers. They have programs for primary schoolers, programs for even the high schools and all of that. And if you don't know, the library could also afford you some free Wi-Fi service if you go there and all of that. So I believe, Mr. Minister, that the library deserves an entire show. We also have under our umbrella the IT department, and we all know at Nevis, if you work anywhere for government, that IT has its tentacles stretched into every ministry, every department, every office. And if there's a problem with a computer, if there's a problem with the internet, if there's a problem with a computer program or whatever it is, IT is there. Now these folks, they do a great amount of job, but they do it very quietly but very efficiently. And IT is one of those departments that I say, they kind of go under the radar, but they are still very, very relevant, especially as we move closer to what we call the e-government. IT, they have created programs to make transactions easier for us. Those of us who like to use our computers to pay bills and things like that, because of programs that our IT department have put together for the NIA. They make life a lot easier for a lot of individuals, and they too, I think, somehow deserve a show. Some persons, as I say, sometimes you don't know about IT until you get a problem with your computer. But they also, during the last quarter of every year, put on something we call the IT week. And maybe leading up to that, we could come back and do a show on that, would let the folks know what IT does.
So we want to do a show for library and a show for IT.
Yes,
sounds good.
Yeah, because as a PS for all of those departments, I believe that we need to put the information out there, and sometimes we don't know because the information, and especially for a show like On the Mark, sometimes the information don't reach as far as it could, unless there's a platform such as a show On the Mark. So I'm putting in a plug for IT, I'm putting in a plug for library services. But we are here to focus on education tonight. And the Ministry of Education has as its primary responsibility is to provide the best quality of education across the island to every citizen, from preschool up to adulthood. And that is firmly rooted in our theme of education for all, embracing change and securing the future. And a lot of people, they hear about the Ministry of Education and they think that, just involved in education in your schools, but the Ministry of Education itself does quite a bit. And we want to make sure, as I said, as our primary responsibility to provide the best quality education that we could provide for everyone, and we do that in a number of ways. For example, we provide a curriculum, and we have been working on a new curriculum, and very, very soon it would be piloted. And this new curriculum is supposed to make us what we call the global citizen. And the global citizen means that, no matter where you are in the world, if you're educated in St. Kitts and Nevis, no matter where you are in the world, you could be effective, you could fit in, you should have the skills, you should have the intelligence, you should have the know-how as to how to navigate in whatever society you find yourself in. And I'm sure Ms. Claxton, she's going to elaborate a little bit on that as we proceed. But we not only try to provide the best quality of education we could for all. We also provide a teaching and learning environment that is conducive for all of our students, conducive to learning. And we try to make such an environment safe, we try to make such an environment healthy, and we do that not only under the Ministry of Education, but we do it through a lot of partnerships, and we have a lot of partners that, you know, we depend on to sometimes put things together, pull things off, and make sure that what we provide is conducive to learning for our and teaching for the teachers and our students. We also provide ongoing training for all of our personnel, from teachers down to even our staff in our offices, and so we want to make sure that everyone under the umbrella of education is afforded an opportunity to be trained, to get further training, and so they don't feel stagnated in any one position or stagnated at any particular level. So we try as much as possible to provide ongoing training. We also support and provide resources for some of our private institutions under education, and we try to collaborate, and we try to help, and we try to make sure that the quality education that we want to provide for everybody is spread right across all of our educational institutions, whether you're public, fall under government, or you're private. And so we do provide some resources and help wherever we can for these private in the schools. And I think one of the major things, and I'll probably take a pause after I mention this one, we are to carefully and prudently utilize and manage our educational budget. That is very, very important to us, because how we use what is afforded us through the Nevis Island administration is very important. And we know that especially in a time such as this, where we have very, very scarce resources, management of what we have is very important. So the Ministry of Education, we take that very seriously. We look at where we could maximize our spending, where we could maximize our resources, and I think that is one of the most important aspect of the Ministry of Education. That's that management and that prudence and that careful management of what we have. We also have offices that are directly under the Ministry of Education, and we have the registration of non-nationals, students who are not from Nevis or St. Kitts, and they come to our shores and they want to get into school, and so we make sure that they are properly registered and afforded the education that we afford to everyone else on Ireland. We also look after, or we have the offices of our TVET, and that's another big project that is ongoing on Nevis right now. And I could also say, and this is a little bragging point that I promote everywhere I go, regionally, internationally, the maintenance team. The Ministry of Education has a maintenance team that has been working wonders in all of our schools, I mean public and private. They are an awesome group of men, 5, and the ministry is extremely proud of these individuals, and they do a wonderful job. And so when it comes to taking care of the infrastructure and all of those things, the ministry is really front and center in doing that. And in a nutshell, that is what we do at the ministry. I spoke a little bit about the partnerships that we try to forge from a ministry standpoint to make sure, yes, that we provide the best quality education that we could provide for our citizens. And I could tell you that some of the some of the ministries that we partner with are, like sports. We do a lot of work with sports, and one of the biggest event on the island, well, not one of the biggest event, the biggest event on the island, in the inter-primary, we do that in collaboration with the Ministry of Sports, and I think every year people look forward to inter-primary. Unfortunately, again, that was one of the events that had to be cancelled for this year because of COVID. I mentioned our curriculum, and that the ministry is very much involved in putting together this new curriculum. But we work in partnership with a company called MindBloom. Again, I think PEO might mention some more of that. And we also collaborated with the CDB, Caribbean Development Bank, for our TVET project, our TVET enhancement project. And all of these partners, but all of these partners work with us to make sure that we are affording our people with the top quality education, and we are really indebted and grateful for the partnerships that we have forged over the years and continue to do so. The NGOs on the island, those are very important to us as well, and the NCDF, very important in terms of ensuring that the Ministry of Education, Department of Education, continue along to embrace our cultural heritage and to ensure that our students not only have a strong academic footing, but also a strong historical and cultural foundation, that they could learn of our arts and history, and in the drumming and the masquerades and the cakewalk and all of those things. So the Ministry of Education, as I said from the outset, is trying to create that the best quality education that we could provide for each and every citizen. And I think I'll pause there for a little while.
PEO, that was a long one, PS.
Yes.
Yes, it was very much detailed, but I guess I should start with the curriculum enhancement, since PS would have spent some time talking about that. And amidst all that has been going on, especially post-closure, after the first COVID-19 cases here in the Federation, we have still continued to work on our enhanced curriculum. That work started in January 2019, and we have had teachers writing, education leaders supporting. We've had consultations, of course, with the general public, with our students, all trying to shape a product that we can all be proud of. And the intention last January was to pilot both primary and secondary classes, grades, for September 2020, but life became a lot it's a lot different from what most of us envisioned, and so we had to scale back a bit. And as we speak, during the course of this week, last week we started training the education officers, this week the principals, and next week we start with the grades 4 and 6 teachers, because for the new school year, amidst everything else, we are going to be doing a technical review of the pilot, technical review / pilot of the grades 4 and 6 curriculum. So working the curriculum is very important. We have to make sure that it is updated, it reflects the needs of the students, it reflects the needs of the country, and as we continuously say, we are preparing children not for today, not for tomorrow, but for things that we don't know will come in the future. And so as we look at all of the other intricacies and all of the other variables, we are also going to be working with the students and the teachers in grades 4 and 6 around this new curriculum. In addition to that, we work assiduously and very closely with the schools in terms of ensuring that we have the best teaching and learning practices happening. We provide professional development, education services across the board, also services in terms of buses, services in terms of school meals, and so examinations. So we offer lots of services. Literacy, we have an ELP, Early Learners Program, through the OECS, and of course the program proper will come to a close in September, but we will continue to sustain the program to ensure proper literacy practices for our early learners, and our early learners for the purposes of this program are from kindergarten to grade 3. And as I think more will come out as we discuss, and I know that we are continuously working to ensure that we integrate more technology as part of the way of the future, as part of the global readiness and preparation, incorporating technology as far as possible into the learning experience for our students. I think the COVID-19 closure kind of forced that hand a little bit more, and we had to move a bit faster on some fronts, but that is something that we will continue to try to do as much as possible as well. And so our students they're digital natives, and they love technology. It doesn't take anything out of them to do it, and do it really fast. In fact, during the closure, when we went online, and all schools didn't get the opportunity to, but most did, and the students, no matter how young, were able to navigate really quickly, sometimes leaving the teachers behind, because they're the digital natives, and sometimes for some of us, we are the digital survivors. And so it takes us a little bit longer to get the hang of some of the technology, but our students, that's something that they naturally do. And so I want to encourage parents and listeners never to doubt what students can do, and as we try to provide them with opportunities to showcase and to explore and to grow, develop, that you would also support and keep an open mind throughout this process. And I think having an open mind is the biggest part of education and lifelong learning, because if you don't have that open mind, it tends to limit how far you are able to go. That's my synopsis, I think. Did I miss anything major, or?
Well, not really, but maybe we could talk a little bit about
see what we can do after the opening salvo. What I would like to do is to, this is a call-in show, and one of the reasons for coming is to ensure that if the general public has any questions, that they know that they can feel free to ask, because people have been asking, is school really going to be opening in September? When is school going to open? Persons have called me personally to say, I hear school is opening. Is it the 7th or is it the 9th? When is school opening? So, this evening provides an opportunity for persons to ask questions. So I want to open the lines, and then we'll continue with our dialogue while the lines are open, and if persons choose to, they can certainly call in and ask those questions that they have had for such a long time. And so the numbers to call: 869-469-1616, 869-469-1700. You're listening to On The Mark. I am Troy Liebert, your host for this evening, and I have with me the top officials in education here on the island of Nevis. Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Education, Mr. Kevin Barrett, and the Principal Education Officer, Ms. Zanella Claxton, and they are here to bring some pertinent information to you and to answer your questions. So the lines are open. Let's hope that persons out there have the questions, and that they're willing to call in on the air and let the general public have the benefit of those answers. But we'll continue with the dialogue, and certainly at the top of the show, early on, I want to ask the question: is school going to be opening in September? And when is school going to be opening in September?
All right, so as part of our preparation, and PS will go through some of the protocols for reopening and what we're doing to prepare. But as part of that process, we discussed the protocols, and we've had some consultations with the principals, and yes, we are preparing to open schools in September, and we are preparing to open at least some grades and some classes on September 7th. And what is going to happen over the course of the next few days and few weeks leading up to back to school is that we will have consultations by school with the parents. So we'll have parent meetings by school, and the teachers will be able to walk, and the principals will be able to walk the parents through what school would look like at their particular campus. Tonight we can give a brief, a general overview, but of course each school will have to make some alterations to adjust to their situation. And so, yes, school will be opened, and we are looking forward. The teachers cannot wait to interact with the students, and I know the students can't wait to interact as well.
Yes. And yes, and even while they really anticipate going back to school, we from the Ministry and the Department of Education, we have to make sure that certain things are done. So prior to the reopening of schools, several measures will be put in place to ensure the safety of all of our children, and that is paramount for us, safety and the health of our children. So we are going to be preparing the learning and spaces and the shade spaces, the restrooms, the cafeteria, the play areas and corridors, entrances, and all of that. And I could tell you that even today we had the sanitization of at least 2 schools. We were hoping to do at least 3 schools today, but we had the sanitization. That is something that is really a priority for us. We are going to have that done for all of our schools, and we had the VOJN primary had its sanitization today, and the Combermere preschool. Tomorrow we are going to be moving on to St. James Primary and some others, but that is one of the things that we are ensuring is done before the children and the staff go back to school. We are going to also do a presentation of the proposed protocols to all the relevant stakeholders, as PEO said, the teachers, the principals, all of the staff, parents, so that you know when your child leaves home to go to school, what is expected of the child, and what should be in place when the child is there. As I said, we want to make sure that when we leave here tonight, that parents and the general public feel a sense of comfort that yes, indeed, that we are taking the health and safety of our children and staff very, very seriously, and we are putting things in place to make sure that is done. We are also going to assign responsibilities for implementation to the various stakeholders, create and implement the relevant communication strategy to create awareness and ensure that, persons buy into what we are doing, and they support us. Create and implement hygiene protocols and cleaning schedules for schools. Over the past, we had some schools who did not have full-time cleaners. Some schools did, some schools didn't. And we are hoping from September that all schools will have full-time cleaners. When we say full-time cleaners, mean cleaners that are there from in the morning to in the afternoon, and so that there is continuous cleaning throughout the day, and not just after school when we had like some part-time cleaners coming in. So those are the cleaners, yes, will be scheduled at the school all day, and that is something new that we are putting in place for some of the schools. As I said, especially these preschools, they would have had full-time cleaners all along, but some primary schools didn't, and some high schools didn't, and we are going to make sure that that is in place. Posting of relevant signage so that you would see the COVID-19 guidelines and regulations in classrooms and throughout the school and throughout the compound, wherever possible. we are going to prepare administrators, education officials, school leadership and staff and parents for the reopening of school. Again, as PO said, that that has started, and we are going to continue that because we want to make sure that all our stakeholders are up to speed with what is expected and what is going to help to keep us safe and healthy. We have also the protocols like the temperature screening and the hand washing stations and all of those things that we are, as I said, we are putting at the top of our list. So far, as the minister would have mentioned earlier, that we have a society that has should I say escaped the brunt of the COVID-19 and the effects that it could have on a society. We praise God that we have had no deaths, and we have all of the individuals who would have tested positive, that they are, well, as we could say, on the better side of things, and we want to keep it that way. And so we want to make sure that our schools and are clean, our schools are safe, our schools are healthy. And so prior to the reopening of school, we are trying to put all of these things in place.
In addition to this, I know that some parents have questions in relation to the younger children. We have been going through the process of ensuring that the early childhood centers are prepared, are ready for the safe reopening of students as well. And so the early childhood caregivers, supervisors, and all persons involved have attended several training sessions, helping to prepare them, as I said, and take them through the protocols, taking them through the steps. I wanted to thank the Ministry of Health at this point for ensuring that they have been present throughout these sessions, and also all of the parties who have contributed towards the preparation of the reopening of the early childhood centers. The idea is that the early childhood grades, the younger children, we know that they are generally tactile individuals, so they touch and they move around, and so we have to ensure that cleaning is one of the most important components of this process for the children at that age. And so ensuring that you have those set cleaning schedules and cleaners to be able to sanitize and clear the area, and of course making the entire process a fun and interactive one for the students as well. I know that COVID-19 can be scary, but we don't need to scare children into hysteria, and so helping them to see that everything that we're doing is just a part of the entire package of keeping them safe. And I think on that note, one of our most important stakeholders in this entire process, of all the stakeholders, I think is in the family setting, the home, the parents. And so we want to take this opportunity to encourage you parents and guardians to start going through with your students the importance of wearing your mask and of washing your hands and all of those proper hygiene practices that have been promoted even more frequently since we heard of the first of the COVID-19 approaching the Caribbean region, and of course when it arrived here. So at this point, as I said, parents, you are instrumental, and as you think about the general protocols and expectations at the schools, we want you to also know that you are an important part of the process, and so practicing and reinforcing and educating at home and speaking with your students in a caring and loving way about the COVID-19 protocols and why it's important to be obedient, even more so now, to the adults at the schools, and the various ways in which the virus can be transmitted. And so we know, as I said, that there are many factors that you cannot control, but we know that you can also really assist us tremendously and greatly if you are able to talk your children through those very basic hygiene practices that will be most necessary.
Let me come in for 1 minute, because I notice our callers are quiet this evening, and the thing about it is that I get so many calls. If my phone rings, let me try to find a realistic number. If my phone rings 80 times during the day in the past week and a half, if it rings 80 times per day, at least maybe a good 50 of those 80 calls are calls about things happening in education and so on. And so tonight we're giving, the public an opportunity to call in. So I'm very, very surprised that we haven't had any calls yet. The lines are open. Numbers to call: 869-469-1700, 869-469-1616. I know that there are loads of questions that persons have, and for some reason I don't know why. I want to ask. Well, I have a question, and not to put anybody on the spot, but several weeks ago we would have stated that the clear has been given for early childhood centers to open once they could meet the threshold for the protocols that have been put in place. And so what I would ask, for the benefit of the general public, because it's things that I kind of already know, but for the general public, where are we with that? Because I know a lot of parents, they have been home since the start of lockdown and so on. Some persons have not been able to really come out because they've been babysitting the infants, who have to go to daycare and so on. So where are we with that?
Okay, so
before you answer, Mr. Minister, maybe we're not getting any calls because we are already answering the questions before they call. Maybe we are giving information that they are soaking up. So, but we would like to get some calls, yes. But yeah,
yes, yes. The early childhood centers had the all clear to open up, and of course they would have had to, they reapplied and they were able to list the persons who will be working with them, and they were given the number of students based on the minimum standards. And I want to say that the minimum standards have been standing for several years, and 40 square feet for nurseries, 25 square feet for preschools, that's per child, and we are asking for 2 feet between the cribs or cots, as the case may be. Of course, we know that most of the nurseries on Nevis are privately owned, and so the proprietors, some of them have taken the decision to wait until September, when the other schools are reopening, and some are, as I said, still working on ensuring that they meet the various requirements to ensure the safety of all students. Some persons, of course, we know that as long as the proprietors are ready, they have the freedom to open as long as they meet the minimum standards. So that's where we are, and several proprietors have stated that they will just wait until September and start September for the new term. And so parents, I know that you have been in contact with your various proprietors as well, and you have enrolled for most part in the various centers, and we are encouraging you to ensure that you have conversations with your various nurseries and early childhood centers in terms of the health and safety of the students. It's a standard checklist. We cover various areas, and those areas include physical distancing and hygiene and mask wearing and those kind of things. And so we want you to have those conversations. As we've said, we've encouraged at every level, we've encouraged the proprietors or the supervisors or the head teachers or the principals to use the general guidelines that we're discussing this evening and put together something that they can discuss with the parents and really get that information across to you as effectively as possible.
Okay, that sounds good. Anything for you to add on that particular topic?
Well, no. I should say yes. What we want to do, Mr. Minister, and for the general public, especially for those individuals who will have a question hearing that early childhood centers are open on St. Kitts, but we want to let the public know that generally on St. Kitts, even during the summer vacation, their centers are usually open. We on Nevis, we usually have a closure and we open in September. So it's
hold on a second. It seems as though we have a call. Caller, good evening and welcome. Your first caller for tonight.
Good evening. I have a few questions.
Sure.
Go ahead.
Yes, go ahead. You're on the mark. Speak up a bit, please.
Oh, sorry. Are you satisfied that the online... Okay, thanks. Are you satisfied that the online program has benefited the last... That the last online program has benefited the children, so no child is left behind? And there's word on the street about the daycares, they have to have less children for social distancing. What's the plan for the parents who have children and need to work? The next question is, everyone is on vacation since in March, so I would have thought, not only me, would have started earlier so the children could complete some of their syllabus just in case of stop and start that we are ahead. And I know some of the classes may be too small. What's the plan for that? And finally, do we plan to utilize the St. James's School, which has lots of space? Thank you.
Thank you very much for those questions. Wonderful questions. I think that the answers would certainly benefit the general public. PEO, you want to start on those?
All right, so number one, are we satisfied that the online program benefited the children so that no child was left behind? Of course, we know that we did not go directly into an online program. It wasn't something that we transitioned into right after the closure. And one of the challenges with the online program was that we spent some time training the teachers not only on the platform itself but on teaching online, because it is very different teaching online than it is teaching in person. The teachers will tell you that. There were several factors which caused the process to be a bit slower. However, I want to say that we have been applauded around the region, and even in looking at some of the examples in North America, for the fact that we spent the time teaching the teachers how to effectively reach and keep the attention of the students while online. I'm satisfied with the work that the teachers did, and I want to applaud them for being consistent, for doing their best, and for really moving with the challenge and showing that they are lifelong learners through this process. The students who were able to access the platform were able to also be effectively engaged. In some instances, the teachers were able to have classes earlier in the morning to accommodate the parents who weren't there, and later in the evening to accommodate the parents who would come in after work. And the reality with the Microsoft Teams, the selected program, is that it has so many opportunities and so much potential. And one of the things that we're going to do going back is that we're going to ensure that the students and the teachers continue to use the platform, but in a way in which we can guide and assist and support even more when they are with us in person. In the event that there is ever to be a closure again, we don't want to have to go back through this process of getting on, learning, and kind of figuring it out and that kind of thing. So I know that, as I said, at all levels, the potential is there. I think a lot of the issues came about with a lot of adults as well, the anxiety that came with the online learning. A lot of persons weren't sure, and we didn't trust the children as much as we could have to to do it and do it effectively. But as long as they know how to access, and I would tell parents, as long as the students are able to log on, and even the parents log them on, the teachers can go as far as to call them in. In any new system, no matter what it is, there are going to be glitches, and so I want to also ask the public to be forgiving. But what we did here, I don't know of anywhere else where they can say that that has been done. In fact, a few days ago, I was online, and I'm on a Microsoft Teams group on Facebook, and a teacher was saying they have to use Microsoft Teams in the US, but they're not going to get any training. So they have to train themselves, and they have to get on there, and the students weren't getting any training. They would just have to guide the students through. So we had students at CBIS who were able to access, and I want to applaud the teachers at CBIS as well. They were able to be as creative, and they used what we gave them, and they were creative. They worked with the parents, and so students at CBIS were able to access. Some of the issues came about not necessarily lack of access, but we want to make sure the parents understand that it's a two-way street. We can't walk into your homes, and so as much as possible putting mechanisms in place to ensure the students are at least at the devices at certain times. There were parents who went to work, for instance, and they ensured that they called back to ensure the students were on at the time they were supposed to be. And there were older persons who were at home, and their sole responsibility was to ensure that the child was sitting at the device at a certain time. We tried our best to distribute devices. Of course, we had to put protocols in place to ensure that we knew where they were going, and we were able to track them and have the proper inventory. And a lot of responses came back much later than we would have anticipated, and so the call went out in March, and some persons, it's only way down in end of June that we noticed that they were not online. In terms of the daycare, asking them to get less or fewer children, once again, the minimum standards have not changed. Reality is that some of the daycares were over the minimum standards a bit, and so it's not that we're asking them to have less children, it's more asking to comply with the minimum standards. Everyone was on vacation since March. I'm not sure if that is quite a true statement. It might have appeared to some that schools weren't open physically, and so persons were on vacation, but the teachers themselves can tell you they were online more hours than they probably would have been if they were in school, and there are teachers and schools online training and working with their teachers, preparing them even on holidays and on the weekends, and so the teachers are humans as well, and we have to also be mindful of that. Psychologically, it was a whole new thing, just on them at one time, and it was a difficult process, and it would have been very much unfair to your children and to the teachers if we reopened school extremely early without allowing them a transitional time. Remember that just like parents have different things happening at homes, at their homes, teachers also have children as well. And so we thought that it would be unfair. And so what we did was that we are bringing the teachers back earlier. They usually come back 1 week before the scheduled start. They're coming back 2 weeks before the scheduled start. To prepare them on the new protocols so that they can look at academic recovery. What do we need to do to fill the gap from when where we left off to where we are now, and putting those measures in place. Our curriculum is a spiral curriculum anyway. That means that we generally reteach after the summer. We generally have to go over certain topics before we move on to the more advanced version of that topic, and so that would be the expectation coming from us for our teachers and for our students. This is not something that happened only in Nevis, it's something that happened internationally, and so internationally, and of course we're speaking specifically to Nevis, but we're going to do everything that we can in the time that we have to provide that level of support. And the classes are too small. What we've done so far is that we have gone about measuring classes, looking at the class roll, and we've been putting different measures in place to try to accommodate the students. In terms of St. James Primary,
It's going to function as normal.
is going to function as normal. The students who are enrolled there, if you as a parent particularly want your child to be enrolled in St. James Primary, we will be happy to accommodate you. That is a parent's choice. But I think for most part, we are trying to see how best we can safely have the students in as normal a space as possible, because there's so many things that have changed. And I think a lot of times we talk about this should be done and that should be done, but we forget the psychological development of the children and the impact that all of this has had on them. Some of them have not left their homes since March. Some parents have not let them go to the supermarket, so they don't even know what protocols look like in practice. And it can be overwhelming, and some of us don't talk through, you know, what it feels like with those children, with the children. And so I want all of us to understand that it has to be a process, and it's a new thing for everybody. It's not new for Nevis. It's not new for our ministry here. It's new for everybody. And so we are trying to use the knowledge that we have of child development, of human development, to think about our teachers, to think about our children, to think about what is best for them. And of course, we will always do and respond in a way which we feel will be in the best interest of all parties, as to the best that we can anyway.
There's anything to add?
Well, I think PO covered it all. One thing though, with the size of the classrooms, I hope that we could appreciate that the classrooms in some instances were not overcrowded, and so a lot of our primary schools especially did not have much of a difficulty in continuing as they did prior to COVID. Where we have to put some focus though is in our high schools, and I think we are going to be dealing with that situation going forward.
I think also it's important to add that we have not been acting in an isolated space. We have been in constant communication with our colleagues over on the island of St. Kitts, and pretty much everything that we have done in lockstep with what has been happening in St. Kitts. So the response has been one for the entire federation, with pretty much everything. When we did the flow study, that was something that was rolled out federally. When we did the Microsoft Teams, that's something that was rolled out federally also. So it's happening in St. Kitts, it's happening here in Nevis. The decision to open school in September, that is also a decision for the entire federation, and the decision was taken with the understanding that teachers, you would normally get the vacation, and our teachers really do work hard, and adjusting to COVID, they had to adjust too, just like everybody else. So it's easy to say that we can just come back to school in the middle of August, as opposed to coming back in September, because we could say we've been off for an extra set of weeks. We didn't have the third term, but we have to understand that these teachers, they were also heavily engaged in all of these online courses. They had to attend classes to learn how to use Microsoft Teams. They had to learn how to do the flow learn. So it's been a bit of a challenge for them also. They've had to adjust, and I think there was a term that we learned about internet natives and
digital natives
and digital survivors.
and
quite a lot of our teachers are
Survivors.
not digital natives. They are digital survivors. I would hope that I'm in the digital native crowd, but quite a lot of our teachers, they are not so comfortable on the computer. We have teachers who are older, and so it was a challenge for them to have to adjust to that new environment. So they themselves needed the summer break to refresh, and they're already behind. So they needed that summer break to refresh themselves, because come September morning, when school reopens, there is a lot of work to be done. You know, it's going to be a no-nonsense thing come next school year. Normally during the school year you would get some time. You know, we have a lot of activities that happen. Activities in the first term, activities happening in the second term, and in the third term is normally the exam term and so on. But for this school year it's going to be different.
Yes.
And we still don't really know yet what the situation is going to be like with COVID, because we're going to have a border reopening, and we would hope that everything goes well and that we don't get COVID coming back into the society. But what happens if it does? We don't yet know what the situation is going to be. The decision that would be made then probably is not going to be made by the Ministry of Education, neither here on Nevis or in St. Kitts. We are going to have to adjust to whatever the situation is. So the ministry and the department, all of the schools, what we're trying to do is to prepare ourselves for any eventuality. We happen to be in the hurricane season. There's a storm now passing to the south. I think it just passed somewhere to the south of us. There's another one that's behind, that's a tropical wave, and then there's one that just seems to be coming off of mainland Africa. And from what we're hearing, this year is going to be a very, very active hurricane season. We're only in August and we've had quite a few storms already. We have September, October, November, and over the past few years what we've realized is that going into late September and into October, we get some of the stronger storms coming. So what we're trying to do is to prepare for any eventuality. COVID came, it thrusted us into online, and we have done quite a lot to develop our online platforms. Here in Nevis, we're actually preparing for that for that online. We're not going back to the position where our schools do not have that technology element. We are going to stick with that technology element. So in the event that we have to go online, we are more prepared this time than we would have been earlier in the year. We have a project that's going on in the school right now. We've partnered with our local service providers, Flow and Digicel, and we're going to be bringing usable internet to the school. Schools have internet in them, yes, but it's not, when you have 200 or 300 students in a school and everybody has to use the same internet, is different to if you're in a place and you have 5 people. 5 people can use the internet properly. But when it's 200 or 300, you have to have a dedicated service that can handle that. And so we are placing internet in the school that's usable so that our students can have access to the internet in a safe way. We're going to have safeguards, of course. Our teachers can have access to the internet. And of course, we're going to have safeguards, because we don't want everybody to get carried away and they're on the internet all day, and they're on YouTube or Facebook or whatever the young people use now, TikTok or Snapchat or whatever it is.
Netflix.
We don't want that we're trying to do something good and it turns out to be something bad. So we're going to have the safeguards in place. We're going to have certain protocols in place. But it's important that we bring technology into the classrooms, that we deploy technology in that way. And so I think the things that we're planning are certainly it's a shift, but it's a shift in the right direction. So if in the future sometime, if COVID comes back later on in this year, or if we have a storm, or if COVID or something similar is to rear its head again, we are going to be prepared. I think we have another caller. Caller, you are on the mark. Good night. Hello? Hello, caller, you're on the mark? Okay. quite unfortunate. We've lost that caller. That was our second caller. Do call back. We're happy to take your questions. I think the first caller who called had some
really good questions.
really
Yes.
good
Yes.
questions,
Very
and
good
certainly we would be happy to entertain any further questions.
And let me add something to Mr. Minister, to what you were just saying about the internet and what we would have done. I must applaud the federal government, the Nevis administration, the Ministry of Education and St. Kitts, and the Ministry of Education here for pulling this together in such a short space of time. I mean, COVID came, and I mean, we just went full steam ahead in getting online the training, the importation of devices, the distribution of devices in a very, very short period of time. And I think that the individuals who worked on it, Dr. Pemberton and P.S. Hodge and everyone who, you know, spent that time in getting things to where we are at this point, I think they deserve a real hearty round of applause, and also the support of all involved. I think we have done, Mr. Minister, what would normally take maybe a year and a half,
No.
2 years.
Sometimes in some instances 5. It would have
You
taken
know,
5 years to do something.
and
Yeah.
to put that together in the space of a month and a half, it was remarkable, and I think we have to really commend all of the individuals who would have put us in this place. As P. would have said earlier, there are jurisdictions who I believe might have even more resources than we do, and they are still collecting packages from their schools, and you know, and giving to their students. While we are here, we would have started out with the packages, and we would have branched off into the online. And as P.O. said again, with any new project, there would be glitches, but the glitches did not deter us from continuing and actually getting to this point, and I think we have done really well. And as you said, Mr. Minister, we're not going back, and so it is already in place, and we are going to build on it. We don't know what would happen in the next week, the next month, next year, and I think that the online learning is the way to go, and I think we're heading in the right direction.
And I want to encourage parents and encourage all of the listeners as well. We know that it is very different, and when you have differences, when things change and it changes really fast, it becomes overwhelming. And so I want to take this opportunity to encourage you, and in speaking with your children, parents, also encourage them to themselves have an open mind and to listen. You know, you would tell from time years of old, you would say, when you go to school, listen to your teacher. It takes a new twist now, because you have to listen, pay attention, follow instructions, and continue to reach out to us as well. I think that will be important, because if we know what's happening, we can make the necessary adjustments. If it takes a little longer to get to us, it would take a little longer for us to adjust. And so we want you to continue the conversation. Reach out to the various teachers, principals, or even reach out to us at education to see how much we can do to help you. And while we are waiting callers, I think that this is a good point to also applaud the education officials like you did, Mr. Barrett, and also the principals. Everyone decided that they're not taking a vacation this year, and so the principals, we met on Monday, and I told them I can't even say welcome back because you never left. The education officers never left. Everyone has been trying to continue to make sure that we can keep everything afloat and continue to work to prepare for our students as they come for the new school year. So kudos to all of you. Kudos to you for the work, the hard work that you have continued to do. And we really appreciate you.
Take a pause. We have a caller coming.
Okay.
Caller, you're on the mark. Good night.
Good night. Next question. What about playing in school? What happens during break time and lunchtime, please? What's the reason?
That's a very good question.
I think I'll go first on this one. we are not going to say that that is not a challenge. And I could tell you why I'm saying that. I have been a school teacher and a principal for, very, very long. It is going to be a challenge for us to keep children away from each other during break and lunchtime. However, as PEO would have said, we need your help, parents. We need for you to encourage your children to practice the protocols that are going to be in place. Children are sociable, and a fundamental part of development is interacting with each other. However, COVID has changed that somewhat. It is not going to be business as usual. We are not going to get every single child to not interact or not interact in a close proximity. The best that we could do is to encourage our children, the mask wearing and all of that, and the physical distancing. And we have to do our best at home. We are going to do our best at the school and the school premises. We want to implement too, during break, not a free-for-all in terms of everybody out for break at the same time. We are going to have staggered breaks. And if I could give you an idea of how we intend to do this, for example, if the kindergartners go out, they would not be going out, let's say, with the grade 1 and the grade 2s. It would be perhaps with the grade 6. It is not natural for the kindergartners to be playing with the grade 6 students. And so we are going to stagger the break sessions in that to discourage too much of an interaction. As I said, we are not going to get this done in 100% in everybody having this physical distancing, but education from at home and encouragement from at home is going to be very, very useful and helpful for us. And so we are mindful that during that time there is going to be some interaction, but we are hoping that you, the parents, you would help us to instill in the children, practice the physical distancing as much as possible.
Okay, and then of course there are some theories out there, and in the meetings this week with the principals, we talked about the difference between theory and practice. But in addition to the recess, the schedule or shift in terms of recess, we're also looking at the possibility of doing some zoning in areas where each group will be allowed to have their interactions and their activities, and providing schedules on which they can be monitored. So it's not like just go outside and play anymore, but ensuring that they're being monitored and reminded. We talked a lot about creating a culture at the school where you don't lose the sense of love and community that makes the school what it is. And so at each school they'll be looking at ways in which we can help children to still interact and have fun and greet each other. You can't hug, but you could do an ear hug, or you can do an elbow tap, or certain things that you can do that will be allowed at the school and be part of the school's culture, to let them know that we still love you, because we don't want to create a society in which children become desensitized and they don't understand the importance of socialization, even in a different setting. And so having those conversations consistently with them as well will be part of the process. As Pierre said, recess, we all know, and all of us have accepted that it will create a challenge. It can potentially create a challenge, but we want, with your support, parents, and of course the support at the schools, to see just how much we can encourage children to engage, interact, but try to physically distance themselves.
Okay, it's 25 minutes after the 9 o'clock hour. That means we have just about 35 minutes left. I think we've been having a pretty robust discussion. We've gotten just a few calls, but the calls that have come have been, the questions have been really, really good questions. That break time question, how do you handle that break time question, eh? But if I could just give the general public just a little bit What exactly are we putting in place in terms of, because right now the big word or the fashion word is sanitize. What are we doing to have our schools sanitized and prepared for the opening of school come September?
Okay. Today, we would have started our sanitization
Hold
process.
1 second, we have
Okay.
a caller coming in. Caller, you're on the mark. Good night.
Hi, good night.
Yes, good night.
When
Welcome.
you said, right, that you're going to get people with there to look for out children and them and so forth. But when you're looking at a big pool, for instance, okay, let me look at Ivor Walters. So then tell me how you're going to do it. I mean, how much people, because you can't just get the security guard alone to be there. You have to have more, maybe at least 4 persons there, because you're dealing with children, and kindergarten children you're dealing with. Then when you look at it again, they are going down to the kitchen for lunch and all them kind of things there. I find it kind of tickly. Explain it to me why.
I wonder make your call go ask me all them portion of question, eh?
Well, I have to ask questions because I have grandchildren. I'm a grandmother. My children, so I want to know exactly what's going on, because when they finish with school, they're coming by me. So me don't want to pick up nothing either.
And that is exactly the concern, and these are the things that I think you've just hit the nail right on the head with the hammer right there, because the students are going to be in school, they're going to interact, and then they have to go back home.
Yes.
Exactly. So you got to put things in proper places, and then next thing that my suggestion is that why you don't call into the parents. They got a meeting with the parents, especially the primary schools. That meeting with the parents, like a PTA meeting, and then you talk to the parents. You know what I mean? Let us see it from your heart, from your face to their face, and explain to them exactly what they expect, that they could also go home and sit with the children and tell them, not just wait till they reach the school. I think you need PTA meetings first.
And you're absolutely correct. But earlier, P.O. Claxton would have addressed that. Yes, that is part of our back to school, or towards the reopening of school, that there is indeed going to be that interaction with the parents to tell them what we have in place, what the protocols are, what is expected of the children. And so yes, we will have that face-to-face before the children come back to school. If I'm to address your question regarding lunch, again, we have had protocols that are being proposed to deal with lunch. As I said, it is not going to be a free-for-all and as usual on the school compound come September. Again, we are going to have the staggered lunch session. So you have persons who are going to the children who are going to the cafeteria. All of the children would not go all at once, and so they would be done grade by grade, and eating would be done not in a communal setting as usual, but the classrooms would be used as the eating spaces. And these are things that we would have already looked at. Yes, and the questions are really good questions, and we are happy that they are coming now. But yes, we have the protocols in place to handle the lunch session. Regarding the children on the outside, as I said early on, yes, we have a number of children who would be on a play field at any one time. Again, we are not going to be having all of the children on the compound at the same time. So oversight by the crossing guards, by the teachers, even the crossing guards and all of those individuals who are going to be on the compound at that time could have that level of oversight of the children. Again, I would say it is not all of the children who will be on the play field at the same time.
Okay, I think the caller there, raised some Really, really good points. That's a feisty caller.
But the reality is that the children have to
Yes.
go home, and that is the truth for many listeners and parents and grandparents who, the children go home to them and they're, they have their concerns and so yes.
Of
it's
course,
really
but
good.
you see, I'm going to put it out there because it's worth putting out there that the reality is that we're opening schools and the people are going to come into physical contact. We will have protocols in place. We will try as much as possible to keep certain groups together. We have a caller. Okay, we have another caller. Caller, you're on the mark. Good night.
Good evening, Troy.
Yes, good
and
evening.
Good evening to my formal boss, and good evening to Mr. Barrett. I hear you are talking about the schools, the primary schools.
Could you
What
turn
about
on your radio in the background? There's an echo.
Hold on. Yeah, I was asking about what about any changes will be for the secondary school? Hello?
Yes,
Yes.
thank you very much. That is actually an excellent question. Thank you so much for asking it. The secondary schools, because due to their size and the capacity, remember an earlier caller, and I should have touched on it then, an earlier caller asked about the size of the enrollment for the various classes. For the secondary schools, when we measured the classrooms and we looked at the enrollment by class, we noted that we would have to go into a shift system for the secondary schools. And so we actually met with the secondary principals. They had a process of communication and deliberation earlier this week as well, and looked at how we could have the students come in, the number of contact hours, and how they would be able to make sure that we're not losing extra time. So what would happen is that those who come in on the AM shift, that's about somewhere around 8 o'clock or thereabout, they would go to just about close to lunchtime, and they will have continuous sessions during that time. In the afternoon, so they will return home, and in the afternoon they would be able to go online, so they'll have a face-to-face in-person schedule, and then they'll have a schedule for classes or what they should be doing in the afternoon. The Microsoft Teams will be a platform used, and so we're going to do that for that round. And then when they leave, we'll have to sanitize the school compound, and the second round would come in. The second group will come in. So, like the previous caller asked, and we stated before, the specific time schedules, the specific schedules by school will be given by the schools in short order. Of course, the teachers are not back out as yet, and so those meetings have to be held first, discussions and conversations with the teachers, and we'll get that process done. But the parents will get an update as to what will be happening, and we are trying our best, and I think that the discussion with the principals was very fruitful. They did very well trying to get the students the number of hours, contact hours, that they need to be prepared for whatever would come our way.
Okay, then thank you very much.
You're very welcome, and have a good evening.
You too.
That's wonderful. Ladies and gentlemen, you're listening to On The Mark. We're in the final half an hour now. We've been having a good show here this evening. I'm here with the Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Education here in Nevis, Mr. Kevin Barrett, and the Principal Education in the Ministry of Education, Principal Education Officer. Where's my mind? Ms. Zanella Claxton. And, we're here to take your questions. We know that persons have a lot of concerns about education, and we're going to try our best to allay some of the fears that people have and to clarify some of the ambiguities that people have about certain things. Certainly, the school system, the education system here on the island is important. The education of our children is important. certainly for parents with younger children, the daycares and the schools are a means of, having the children looked after for those hours when parents have to go out to work to make a daily bread, to ensure that they can earn so that they can look after their children. So we know that the schools, they serve several different purposes. I think most of us are parents also, so we understand it's a humanity thing, and we know that we have to do our best to get the schools back on track and to have them on track in a safe way. Safety comes first. Safety for our teachers, safety for our students while they are in schools, and then safety for our people, because the students have to go back home to interact. We have another caller. Caller, you are on the mark. Good night.
Hello. Good
Yes,
night
good
again.
night.
You're talking about sanitizing and so. This is the time now I start to place your orders to get all them sanitizing, because all that I hearing Janella saying, they have to sanitize this, and every time they go to have to be sanitizing.
You're selling sanitizer?
No, but I mean when you said that.
Yeah, but that is certainly true, and we are ahead of you in that respect.
Great. And then, what about the school bus now?
Yeah,
we have to be sanitizing the school buses also.
Yes,
you're reading my notes.
Certainly. I think both PS and PEO would have something to say about that. But we know that the school bus is very important, because it's going to be the first point of contact for some of our students in getting to schools, and we are certainly working on that. We are actually working on improving the fleet also, but I don't want to come out and give too much information to the public and then not have anything good to report in a while, because these things take time. So my preference would be when we have something ready to go, that I come and I say that that this is ready to go at this point in time. But we are certainly working.
Okay. This one is for the PS now, right? Well, PS, how are you going to really get all of these organized with the teachers and everything, and so everything would surely be in place?
Well, it has started. We have started our training with the principals. We have had the training with the principals. We have had training with the leadership today, and we are going to continue, with the training of the teachers, and we are working very closely with the Ministry of Health, and so. When it comes to the protocols that would help our teachers to feel more comfortable, and also to have an eye out for any anything that is out of order in terms of the protocols. Yes, so we are putting those things in place, and we are doing them as we speak. So yes, we are. I think we are really on track at this point. And you would have mentioned something about the buses. So yes, our buses are going to be properly sanitized, because one of the things that we intend to add to the fleet that we have now is what we call a bus attendant. And what would be the duties of such an individual? Now, that individual would ensure that all the students who are about to board the bus, that they will check for their temperature. They will have a temperature screening. Well, let me back up a little bit. Even before that, they would be in charge of sanitizing the bus before the students embark, and also after the students disembark. And then while the students are coming onto the bus, they are going to make sure that there's a physical distancing. There would be temperature screening. They would ensure that the children are wearing their masks. Well, everybody who comes on the bus must be wearing a mask. And they would ensure that the buses are not overcrowded in any way. And they will also maintain order on the bus. So we are going to be adding, someone who we are going to be calling a bus attendant as I said, the health and safety of our children, that is our first priority. And so we are putting these things in place so that, as I said, by the end of the show tonight, person should be feeling much more comfortable.
I am here writing, with my pen and paper,
You should be recording.
No, I will write them down. I'm
All
writing them down. But the next thing, right, is that is the mask. When you talk to the parents, because most people could sew, right? And even that the government would be giving out masks to the schools for the children, I think parents also could make some too first year.
Of course. As I said, we cannot do this thing alone, and that is why we really want the parents to really give us the support that we are looking for from the home front, in terms of the talking to the children, encouraging them to abide by the regulations that are going to be in place, because the safer one keeps him or herself is safer for the person who is beside them. And if we are all abiding by the protocols that are put in place, I think Nevis has done a very, very good job of that. I listened to a bit of news out of Jamaica this morning, and in some parishes, I know St. Andrews, that name was called, they had to pull back on reopening schools in September because of a spike in COVID-19 cases in that district, at least. And so I think that we are doing quite well. I want us to continue to adhere and continue to practice the social distancing and whatever else is keeping us at this point, and we encourage our children to do the same.
Yes, but I want you all to call and call meetings, and then we come to the school and beg us, because some people can say yes, and then we still might having problems.
Yeah.
But that's what you're saying on the radio, it's only for tonight, but we have to use the TV, go on the TV, we have a TV station, and use every aspect that you could, because not everybody listen to the radio. People go look on the TV too, and go into the schools and listening.
You're quite right.
Hello, caller, you still there? Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we're creeping up on 20 minutes. You have another call? Okay, we have another call. Okay, we lost that call. Callers, well, tonight is not one of those nights when we have a lot of calls coming in, so if we missed you, do call back. We'll be happy to answer your questions, to hear your views and your comments. In the meantime, we have just about 15 minutes more. 15 minutes on radio is a short space of time, and I know that you have a lot more that you want to say. So I'll go back to you.
Yes, we have to be mindful that this is a new environment that we are operating in, and we don't want to slip back into a point of, or a place where we get complacent. As I said just a while ago, I think that we have been doing quite well, and I want to encourage all of the homes, all of the parents, all of those persons who will have students coming to us in September, to really encourage your children to stay safe, to do the healthy practices and all of that. And the caller just now raised the point of the mask wearing. The mask wearing, I think, is one of the ways in which we could, has been promoted as one of the major ways of keeping COVID-19 at bay. I know it is not a comfortable thing for everyone, but it is something that I believe is going to be it's going to come almost second nature in time to come. And so we want to encourage even those individuals who are not so comfortable with it, that it is something that needs to be worn, something that needs to be practiced, and we want to encourage all of the homes, all of the families, all of the parents to continue to do that. We know that, yes, there are some parents who are into making masks and things like that, of course. But we at the ministry, we also thinking of providing some. But that too is something that we have to sit and decide, and how we're going to go forward with that. But it is part of what we want to do in ensuring that we have safety and the health of our students, teachers, and all at school at the top of our list.
And of course, one of the questions that came up during our discussions around the wearing of masks is what happens to persons who have respiratory illnesses and students who might have certain underlying conditions. And so of course we know the SRNOs protect us from, or persons who have such conditions, from having to wear the mask consistently. We would need parents, though, if you have a child who has a particular condition, we would need a doctor's note or something that states that the child indeed has that condition. We're willing to also allow them to wear, for those specific children, to wear face shields. They're not as the protection is not as good as with the mask, but at least allows for an additional layer of protection. And then we would try our best to ensure that we're keeping them a safer distance of 6 feet at as much as possible. So in the event that you have a child who has an underlying condition, a respiratory condition, we don't want you to feel that your child would have to wear a mask all day. And we're also encouraging for the early childhood centers, we are going to determine, based on the SRNOs, 3 years and older, but we are going to try to determine at what points we can safely, in the event that we could remove the mask for those ages during the course of the day. And we are encouraging parents for children who are going to be entering the preschools this school year to have an extra one in their bags. You know, you always have an extra change of clothes, and so the mask, of course, would be part of the extra change of clothes. So just in case a child takes it and wipes it on something or does something like that, we can switch out and have that mask hygiene going on as well. We'll teach them even at that age how to safely put the mask on, how to safely remove it. We've had conversations with the Ministry of Health in terms of teaching our teachers and all of our staff members, and of course doing public relations on how to clean the mask, how to properly wash it and take care of it, so that we do not put on masks that are dirty, which would then cause further respiratory issues. And so that is something that we wanted to touch on as well. We wanted to also let parents know that we will not be able to have the free flow of traffic going in and out of the schools, and I think that's something that we might have missed so far. And there's so many elements that we have covered, but if a parent needs to visit the school, or guardian, that person would need to contact the school in advance, even if it's on the same day, but contact the school, call ahead to let us know that you would like to speak with the principal, you would like to have that meeting of sorts, and we can let you know if that is possible, if it could be arranged, or if it would have to be arranged at a different time. Remember, each of us, each adult would have gone around to all the different places and to come onto the compound back and forth and having that heavy traffic. That is not going to be possible at all. We're going to try our best to protect instructional time, and so we have to then we have to eliminate some of the extracurricular activities for the first term in particular, and that's a first term response. And then, of course, we will be guided after that. As our first caller said, we would have lost some academic time, and we want to try to get some academic recovery in. And to be able to recover some of the content and the time, we would have to remain focused. So we are redoing our timetables to ensure that we have the students engaged, but that we are getting some of those skills that they might have lost during the closure, that we can regain them. And so parents, we're asking you to, as I said, support us there as well, and the general public, knowing that I know some persons are accustomed to visiting and going, and we can't do that. Classroom assemblies versus full group assemblies. We know a full school assembly means a definite gathering, and so we have asked the principals in our discussions to host classroom assemblies, and we've given them some guidelines as to how those could be executed, implemented, so that we can ensure the safety of our students. Concerts, then, of course, that's a gathering in itself as well, and so we've talked about independence concerts and how we could provide opportunities for our students to still be patriotic and still celebrate our country, but not in the usual.
I think we did something really nice last year
the outfits
for independence.
Yes. And that was, so we gave them creative ideas, the dress-up ideas, poetry writing projects, doing a classroom display, a homework assignment where they can display and explain, or a presentation, anything along that line. Still, as I said, celebrating our country as much as possible.
So Barrett, you want to jump in? We only have 10 minutes. It's a little bit of time. If I start to talk now, I'll take the whole 10 minutes.
we will talk until we'll give you about 5 minutes. As PO was talking about the concerts and a general assembly and things like that, we know that, as I said, children are sociable. What we do not want to happen, though, even though we have to abide by all of the protocols and the regulations that COVID would, have us doing at this point, parents, we still want you to be talking with your children, and the conversation should be along the line of, even though you are not allowed to hug and to be too intimate or too close to an individual, that level of camaraderie, that level of respect and love and stuff should still be very much present in how they interact with each other. We know that children could be very harsh or callous in what they say and do at times, and sometimes really because of their level of maturity, they don't really mean anything by it. And I'm leading up to something. I know that children understand to a point what COVID-19 is, and I do not want parents, and I want you to listen to me very carefully, I do not want children to start picking on or accusing other children of having COVID-19 if the child coughs. That is going to be very, very, very important. You have to encourage your children not to pick out and not to discriminate and things like that. I know what I'm saying because I have worked in that school environment for a very long time, and I know children could be, as I said, very, very blunt, very harsh with some of the comments. So parents, we are asking you to speak to your children. If a child coughs, it doesn't mean that the child has COVID, and we do not want the children to start, say, oh, you have this and you have that. Just speak to them. We are going to put things in place. However, for anyone who comes to the entrance of the school, we are going to have the infrared thermometer. So if someone has a fever that goes beyond, I think it's 99. Yes, or 100. We know that individual would not be allowed to enter this school compound. If you have a child, please, and it's the child is displaying these the flu symptoms and the coughing and the runny nose and things like that, please do not send the child to school. And that will help us quite a bit. But we want you, as I said, to help us with the education of your child in terms of how to react to those around. We still want them to be sociable. We still want them to be friendly and loving, and not name calling and things like this in such an environment.
Ladies and gentlemen, you're listening to On the Mark. We've had quite the time, and I think we're just about 6 minutes to go before the 10 o'clock hour. If there's anybody else who has a quick question, you certainly have just a little bit of time. We could take 1-2 calls if persons are so minded to call. But I think it was a really, really good show tonight, and that some good information has been put out to the public. I had to laugh, P.S., when you spoke about the teasing, because it's not something that I had paid too much mind to. And I know that kids could be that type of way. One person could cough, and then, the jeering starts that, this person had COVID and so on, and that could become a big thing in the school. So we're trying to reopen the schools, and we want people to be mindful of all of these little things. So I think it's a time for parents to really sit down and have that discussion with the children. Let them know you're going back into the school environment, but these are not normal times. I think we have a caller. Hold it. Caller, you are on the mark. Good night.
Hello, good night, Joy.
Yes, good night. How are you?
Okay. Just want to ask a question.
Sure.
Will the children be sitting 6 feet apart in class? And will all the children, from class of 24 and stuff like that, will all of them be in one class if they sit 6 feet apart?
Okay, those are the two questions?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll have the PEO answer you right now.
So our proposal is, and this has been tested in countries around the world. So our proposal is to have the students 3 feet apart in terms of their sitting, and at that point they're not discussing, so you don't have that level of droplets going into the air. And so we have gone out to classrooms and tried to fit the desks at 3 feet apart. As we said earlier in the show, we will be able to have most of the students in most of the classes will be able to carry on as usual. Those that are over the number, though, we are working with the schools to find alternate spaces to be able to also have them. So in some instances, we'll have to use different rooms to be able to house all of them. What we've asked the schools to do in the upcoming week is to actually lay out all of the desks in the classroom to double check and make sure that we have the correct concept. So we know that we've measured, we have the number of students who can fit into the classroom. We just want to make sure that we actually put the desks out and see that it will work the way that we have envisioned it.
Okay, thank you very much. I think that's our last call for this evening. We just have about a few minutes left. I was just there, had a quick peek at my phone, because people send in questions on the phone, and they want me to ask the questions. And oddly enough, they don't want to call in and be on the air. And so I want to thank both of you for coming and for imparting this wealth of knowledge to our people. And I want to take the opportunity here on the Mark to commend both of you on the terrific jobs that you're doing, and to commend the staff at the Ministry and the Department of Education for the hard work that I know that all of you are putting in to make sure that we are going to get to the point that we need to be at come September. It's been quite a challenging past few months. I know it has not been easy, and for you, the general public, it's been meetings after meetings after meetings. Both PS and PEO, they have been working when most people at home sleeping, You know, you all are working really, really hard, because it's a lot of things that go on behind the scenes to have to manage all of these facilities, to manage the amount of students and so on, and to make sure that all of the necessary things are put in place. It takes quite a lot of work. And then it's not just working here on Nevis. A lot of things are happening over in St. Kitts. So almost every day it's trips over on the boat. And those of you who go to St. Kitts, you know, once you head out in the morning and you go to St. Kitts and you come back over, you kind of knock out because the boat ride and so on would knock you out. But these are the things that both PSPEO and education officers and so on go through on a regular basis, having to go to St. Kitts, have to come back, and then still have a full day of work here. So it's a lot of work. So for those in the general public who don't know, I'm just taking the opportunity to commend both of you for the job that you do, and to let you know that I appreciate you, certainly, and I know that the entire government appreciates the hard work that you have been putting in, and I believe that our children here on the island of Nevis are much better off because of the work that you do. That's our show for this evening. Of course, the show is going to be rebroadcast tomorrow at 1 p.m. tomorrow. So if you didn't catch the show tonight, you can catch us on the rerun tomorrow. I want everybody to have a very safe and restful night. Thank you.
The views and opinions expressed on the preceding program were solely those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views of the